You're on the John Fredericks Radio Network, Trucking the Truth across America. Joining us now, Curtis Sliwa. Curtis founded Guardian Angels in New York City a very long time ago. He's got some video that he just put out on the lawlessness that is going around right now in New York City, especially in Penn Station. Curtis, also the host of his radio show that runs on WABC 77 in New York, 12 to 3, Monday to Friday. Steve Bannon, War Room Pandemic, syndicated by John Fredericks Network. He's on WABC 5 to 6 p.m., and we carry him 5 to 6 on the John Fredericks Network also. And Curtis is with us now. Curtis Sliwa. Curtis, on short notice, great to have you with us, man.
Oh, my pleasure. By the way, you're not stopping New Yorkers going south of the Mason-Dixon line, are you? Like some states are deciding to turn us around back to New York and New Jersey?
I tell you what, being that you guys are now like representing half of the deaths and half of the new cases, we probably should. What was that movie that just came out, 21 Bridges, where they shut down airports, bridges, tunnels, Amtrak, you couldn't get out? Maybe that's what we need to do, 21 Bridges.
That's right, and I noticed you were talking about our governor, Andrew Evil Eyes Cuomo, King Cuomo II, the son of Mario Faccia Bruta Cuomo, King Cuomo I. He's sort of my cousin Vinny. To the rest of the country, it's like it's Joe Pesci who's deciding, hey, we should get all the ventilators, we should get all the equipment. Screw the rest of you. I thought we were the United States of America. I thought we were supposed to be looking out after everyone throughout the United States. But with Cuomo, it's always I and me. It's never us and we.
When's he going to stop whining? He gets on TV every day and he whines and complains. What has he actually done other than whine and moan?
Well, what he does is he presses the panic button every day, fear, fright, hysteria, and hype. And naturally, people quiver, and they say, oh, we've got to self-quarantine, we've got to shelter in, it's the end of the world, it's a war. And notice how frequently they throw that term around, it's a war. Well, guess what? In a war, there are casualties. And unfortunately, with this coronavirus spread that nobody could have predicted, nobody was prepared for it at a federal, state, or local level. Instead of pointing fingers at one another, because there'll be plenty of time to point fingers at one another later, everybody should be joined in solidarity. But if you notice what our elected officials are doing at a state and local level is they're saying, let me tell you something, buddy. The friend that you grew up with down the block that you went to school with could be your enemy. Unbeknownst to you, could be carrying that secret enemy, that invisible enemy, the virus. So, basically shelter in, it's rapture, pass the ammunition tray, you can't trust anyone. And I'm saying that's such an un-American tradition. After
right.
9/11, after the meltdown of 2008, after Superstorm Sandy, hurricanes, floods, Americans come together and help one another.
Well, the governor, by the way, we're with Curtis Sliwa. He is the head and the founder of the Guardian Angels. Curtis also has his own radio show, WABC 77 New York. Steve Bannon on at 5 to 6. Curtis is on 12 to 3. Curtis, let me just ask you this point blank here. Your governor, Cuomo, whining about he doesn't have enough ventilators, doesn't have enough beds, doesn't have enough hospitals, doesn't have enough of anything. Then when the president hints at maybe a quarantine, like Steve Bannon just said a few moments ago, quarantine New York, he goes crazy and says that's an act of war. What is he talking about?
Well, remember, let's face it, most Americans really do not like New Yorkers, and I totally understand it. That New York attitude can really rub you the wrong way. It worked for Trump because he won the heartland with it, but it doesn't work for Cuomo. And you forgot the other cast character of mayhem here, Comrade Bill de Blasio. He's our part-time mayor, the guy who loves to smoke dope in his neighborhood of Park Slope. This guy has me spinning like a top each day with his press conferences. I get political vertigo. So what's happened is that New York keeps pressing that panic button, talking about how many deaths, how many more people are going to get sick, how we've got to stop the economy in its tracks, how you can't go outside. So why wouldn't the rest of the country, which is not suffering to this degree in any way, shape, or form, suddenly look at New York and say, what the hell would we want any New Yorkers coming to Florida or Texas or Rhode Island for we'll have to just quarantine the island of Manhattan and the other 4 boroughs that make up the city of New York. I totally understand that. But the reason that that's coming down the pipe from so many officials is because of what our governor and mayor say on a regular basis that would make you think that we had the Black Plague in New York City and it was going to wipe out America. It's not. We need to get back to work. We need to get out into the streets. We need to flex. We need to be able to say to the rest of the world, yes, it is an unseen enemy, coronavirus, but we will not fold like a cheap camera to it. We will win this war, but you can't win your war by hiding in the house like Chicken Little. The sky is falling. Oh, it's the end of the world. How weak, how feckless we have become as Americans.
I got to tell you, Curtis, I agree with everything you're saying. So how do we get past this quarantine, stay home, social distancing? Look, I just had Steve Bannon on, is still calling for a 30-day national lockdown of the entire country. Doesn't matter if you're in North Dakota or New York City. He also wants all domestic flight travel stopped, all interstate travel stopped for 30 days. You don't see it that way. Why?
Nah, I tell you what, at the end of those 30 days, we're all living in a hovel out in the streets, and we don't have 2 nickels together to rub together like manhole covers. I wonder if I knock on Steve Bannon's door, if he's going to pay my rent, if he's going to pay my grocery bill. The federal government, which is printing money, mad money, like it's monopoly money, we just raised the debt, we raised the deficit. Are these people out of their mind? Where the hell are we going to get all this money from? We're already in debt. We already have a growing deficit. We are bankrupting not just the future of our children and children's children. We're going to bankrupt it for us. The 401k is going to become a 201k. We, the baby boomers, are now all moving into retirement. We're expecting the Medicare, the Social Security. Hey, kiss that, so buy it.
It's all going to collapse. So See, I agree with you, Curtis. I agree with you.
I defy it. We go into the bowels of Penn Station where you have the homeless and the emotionally disturbed. We don't wear gloves. We don't wear masks. We feed them. We wash them. We care for them. And we say, oofa to government, because if we don't take care of the emotionally disturbed and the homeless, who are normally everywhere in the streets, if they get the coronavirus and it passes amongst themselves, then naturally average everyday people are going to catch it. So we have to do these things without depending on government.
Right. All right, Curtis, I agree with you. I just debated this with Steve Bannon, who's a very good friend of mine, for a half hour. Look, we're going to, if we go this route, you're going to have nothing to come back to. And the problem I have when they talk about bending curves or shattering curves is nobody, Curtis Sliwa, can give me a number. Like, does that mean how many people die a day that we say, okay, now we can get back to work? What percentage is it? Is there a number? No one has one. So my fear is it just goes on. And then we get the, the people on MSNBC and CNN saying, like the question to Chuck Todd the other day to Joe Biden, does President Trump have blood on his hands? I mean, this is the despicable things that we have to deal with the fake news. Curtis Sliwa with us.
And then, you know what the classic is? And at the end of all that, they bring out the Grim Reaper from New York. Another New Yorker, Dr. Fauci. Hey, my little please. It could be 100,000, maybe.
Hey, got him back. John Fredericks with Curtis Sliwa. Curtis, the founder and head of Guardian Angels in New York City, also the host of his own radio show, noon to 3, every day, WABC 77 in New York City. Biggest talk station, I think, in the entire world, I believe. Also, Steve Bannon, we've syndicated him on that, 5 to 6 p.m., along with the John Fredericks Radio Network. Steve Bannon, War Room Pandemic. We just debated him for 30 minutes. Curtis Sliwa back with us. Curtis, you were talking about Dr. Fauci.
Yes, the Grim Reaper. Another New Yorker. Trump is the optimist. Cuomo is the dog face, the doom and gloom. De Blasio is yours. And then comes the evil one, Dr. Fauci, to say, my little pretties, 100,000, don't make that 200,000 will be in body bags before this is all said and done. Now, my estimate may be a little high, and naturally it generally is. Like, shut up, Fauci. You're scaring the hell out of Americans. 200,000 body bags? He is out of his mind. He needs to be committed to a psychiatric hospital. Get this guy out of here.
My little pretty. Okay, he is the Grim Reaper. All right, Curtis, you did make me laugh. That's a great imitation. Another New Yorker too, by the way. Now, Curtis, I'm originally from New York, as you know. I've been in the South a long time, and so I love New York. I love the job that Mayor Giuliani did in revitalizing the city since Mayor Dinkins, and I also thought Bloomberg was a fantastic mayor outside of the soda thing, but they did a fabulous job. But this guy, de Blasio, how did this guy become mayor there?
Well, unfortunately, the demographics have changed because we had the greatest migration of hipster and millennials into the city. From Iowa, where there are more pigs than people, Idaho, where there are more potatoes than people, and they came in with this Democrat, socialist, liberal, AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, all-out crazy bent. And so this city has gone far to the left. So believe it or not, Comrade de Blasio, who loves to smoke a fatty at night, puff fast, and loves that marijuana with his wife at the end of the night, is actually a moderate by those standards, but he has no what we call coulions, onions. He is afraid of his own shadow, and it's reflected in how New Yorkers react. You mentioned Michael Buttigieg, Rudy Giuliani. After 9/11, he gave us hope. He comforted us. He reassured us. De Blasio makes us feel like he's going to give us a shovel and we can dig our own graves, that there's no hope. It's all over.
I don't know how he got elected there. I want you to tell me, I've got 4 minutes. Curtis Sliwa, I want you to tell us about what you saw in Penn Station last night. Many of us that grew up in New York, lived in New York, like me for a long time. I mean, Penn Station, that's where everybody goes. You take Amtrak in or the Metro or whatever it is. You take that into Penn Station, New Jersey Transit. What is going on right now? What did you see in Penn Station?
Well, John, under normal circumstances, 700,000 people come into Penn Station each day. 700,000 people go home from Penn Station each day. Now it's become one flew over the cuckoo's nest. I was wondering where Jack Nicholson was it with his hatchet. We have severely emotionally disturbed people roaming about. We've got homeless people. They've released prisoners from the biggest lockup in New York City. Talk about a weak-kneed mayor who folds like a cheap camera while he's telling you and I that we need to chain ourselves to the radiator and shelter ourselves in. He's letting Rikers Island inmates out. He's giving them cab fare. He's giving them cell phones. He's giving them a hotel room. And they leave and go right into Penn Station. And they're shooting dice. They're dealing drugs. They got these transgendered hookers who are standing by the men's room saying, hey, dollar, I'll take you around the world in 80 seconds. And you're looking at yourself and you're saying, I can't believe this is America, New York City. No cops. There is absolutely no law. It's anarchy. So I've utilized the Guardian Angels to basically put Penn Station in lockdown. And it truly is one flew over the cuckoo's nest. But our local officials, all they want to do is press conferences every day. It's Cuomo. It's de Blasio. They need to understand this is their responsibility. These are our citizens. They belong in psychiatric hospitals. We need to take care of them on a regular basis so that when a crisis like this occurs, the coronavirus spread, we're not watching people basically take over our city who, if they get infected with coronavirus, will help spread it like wildfire. So we're watching them and bathing them. And people come up to me and they say, John, well, you don't have a mask. You don't have gloves. I said, when I looked at Mother Teresa with her nuns in Calcutta taking care of those with leprosy, I never saw her wearing a mask and gloves. I said, look, I'm not going to give in to this fear. Everyone's going to get coronavirus at one point or another. Most won't even know they had it. They'll have very light symptoms. Unfortunately, some of our fellow Americans may end up having serious medical issues, and some may perish. It's just a fact of life before we come up with a vaccine in a year or 18 months. So in the meantime, we're digging in. We're going to fight for what we know is right. And more importantly, we're not going to leave the people on the bottom of the food chain to fend for themselves, because you know what that means. Double trouble in a city that's already sliding into the abyss.
Where are the police?
The police have decided they don't have coronavirus flu, they have the blue flu. They look at the anarchy. They're not getting backed up by the elected officials, Cuomo and Mayor de Blasio. So they've decided, look, we're not going down there and risking our lives. We're not going to get coronavirus from what they call the edges of society. And I look at them and I said, guys and gals, I understand you don't have backup. But that's the reason you're a cop. You are the first line of defense. And they told me, we're out of here. We're not dealing with this. I said, okay. The guardian angels go and say, fear not. We will go into the belly of the beast, and we will deal with the problems that nobody else wants to deal with. So just do me a favor. Close your eyes, cops. Our methods sometimes are quite physical. We give therapeutic back massages. We have people suck concrete. We give them attitudinal readjustments. So don't bother coming if you get a 911 call. You've abandoned ship. You're MIA. We're taking over. We're making sure that especially the older homeless people are not going to be preyed on and abused.
Curtis, final question. Tough job for Guardian Angels. How do you recruit so many volunteers?
Well, everything is based on leaders having to set an example. It's not do as I do, but not as it's really do as I say, but not as I do. So we have groups now in 13 countries, 100 for 41 years since I started it in the Bronx in the late 70s when there was total anarchy reigning in the subways and the streets. We basically have to approach men and women and young adults, and you have to say to them, forget the elected officials. They're going to promise everything, and at times they just can't deliver on their promises. It's about self-help. We have to take responsibility for our community, for what goes on in our cities, in our neighborhoods. We can't always be dependent on the elected officials and the police. There's a place for them, but on an average, everyday basis, we are the people who should be putting boots down in the street. We should be the role models. We should be helping our fellow citizens, the elderly, the infirm, the disabled, the shut-ins. It shouldn't be the responsibility of government alone because they always promise that they're going to do it, and then they come to us and they want more shekels. They want more moolah shmoolah. They want to tax us from the cradle to the grave. So I say to all of those in elected government, no more taxes. We'll take care of ourselves. Thank you.
All right. I love what you're doing. Curtis Sliwa, live New York City, head of the Guardian Angels, started it 41 years ago. Lawlessness in New York and Penn Station. Curtis also the host of his own radio show, WABC 77 in New York, 12 to 3. Curtis, thanks for being with us.
Well, it's time for all of us to man up and woman up. That's what makes us Americans. It's time for us, John, to get tough.